Hey everyone, it's Ed40. So, my last video was a bit of a mess. It was long, everyone died, and I played really sloppily. I was trying to figure out ways to make this run a little bit smoother, and I decided that since I'm playing the Pseudo Snaplock in Emerald, I'm gonna exclusively use Hoenn Pokemon. It's a big decrease in Pokemon, but I think it'll be less messy. I'd already randomized and divided the entire Hoenn Pokédex in two, taking out all starters, legendaries, pseudo-legendaries, and Gyarados. So I just took out all the Pokemon from my list who weren't from Hoenn, which brings it to 24 Pokemon lines. 26 including Wynaut and Azurill, who I'm not planning on catching. I'm pretty excited for this. I think Gen 3 is the best Pokemon design generation by far. Like 80% Pokemon hit, it's incredible. So I'm ready to dive back in. These are the rules of the run in short. You can only catch the first viable encounter on each route, no duplicate encounters. If a Pokemon faints, they're dead. There are no items in battle outside of held items, and there are level caps equal to each gym leader or champion's ace. Pokemon Emerald was the first game that came out after I got a Game Boy. Pokemon Ruby was the game I always wanted to get when I was growing up, but Emerald was by far the best Pokemon game I'd ever played, with incredible graphics, for its time at least, a fun story, even if I don't really have any sympathy for Team Aqua, and a great region to explore. So I played it to death. What I really liked about the Hoenn region is that, like the Kanto games, it felt surprisingly lived in, but it had way more body. Everything's so slick, and even though I'd argue there are at least 4 mainline Pokemon game sets better than it now, it's an incredible game nonetheless. I wanted to play the game I thought was the definitive or best version of its region for each part of this series, and I like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire a lot, but come on, Emerald's truly where it's at for Hoenn. This is the first time I'm playing Emerald straight up in about 8 years, so I'm so hyped to get into it. So no more dragging this out, let's start the show. I'm gonna play May and pick Torchic, which just feels right. Mudkip's also by far the best starter against my team, and my favorite overall here. When I was a kid, I'd always pick Trico because Ash had one, but I didn't really like the feel of them much in these games, so then I moved to Torchic. But for some reason, outside of Generation 6 and 7, I've never been a huge fire starter guy. Even though this is one of the best generations for starters, I just love the feel of playing with Mudkip the most as I got older, though I've come to appreciate them all with time. As I played this run, I realized I totally blotted out how patronizing Brendan is. He's gotta be one of the most arrogant rivals in any game. What a jerk. I beat Brendan, get the Pokédex and my running shoes, and now I can finally start catching Pokemon. I get my first one on my first grassy step on Route 101, a Poochyena I name Hot Dog. They're not the best this generation, but Intimidate's always phenomenal. After a teensy bit of grinding, I catch a Wingull I named Jerk Chicken on Route 103. She's got a deeply mixed, plus speed minus attack timid nature. But outside of the Noctowl line, and I guess the Corviknight line now, the Pelipper line's my favorite early bird species, so I'm so excited to use her. And now, it's meeting time. I meet my dad. I love the fact that you have an actual gym leader dad in these games. He's kinda a deadbeat, but it's still wild to me that the Pokemon games almost never have dads in them. I meet my real rival too, and I feel like he's not super popular in the series, but his arc of Pokemon making him happy and healthy was always really charming to me. Most important though, I meet Scott. This Dreamboat doesn't have a huge story role, but what a looker. In Petalburg Woods, I catch a Shroomish I named Shish Kebab, who has a plus attack minus special attack adamant nature. He's perfect for Roxanne. I also get an Nincada on Route 116 I named Tamale. This is awesome because I could have gotten a Skitty here too, and now I don't need to worry about that, which, thank God, because they're awful. Now that I've got a team of 4, I train them up, and once my Pokemon get to the cap, I take on Roxanne. Like I said, Shish Kebab is perfect here. But because of his minus special attack nature, Absorb doesn't even KO either of the Geodudes, meaning Roxanne can heal. And Shish Kebab's speed gets dropped twice before facing the Nosepass, which then means Nosepass can outspeed. But thankfully she just uses block as I hit Stun Spore. I set up Leech Seed, and now with the combination of Leech Seed and Absorb, Shish Kebab is stable and it's basically just a waiting game. Even though he gets hit twice with Rock Tombs, he still outspeeds and never falls below 2/3 health. I love my little fungus. Upon leaving the gym, I'm tasked with stopping the most pathetic hostage situation of all time, which Tamale handles easily. And now, I get to serve the bidding of my corporate overlords as a reward. What could be sweeter? So, I know this rival battle is optional, but since this is my first one with approved Pokemon, let's do it. I lead with Tamale, but switch in Jerk Chicken as Slugma Embers for minimal damage. Water Gun takes him to the red, but he gets off a Yawn. Although that's not great, I KO and Mudkip can't do anything to Jerk, so I play the waiting game until she wakes up mid-bide and confuses him. After he hits himself, a couple wing attacks get the job done. This is probably the easiest rival in all of Pokemon overall, so I'm happy to put him in his place. Now here's the part that tripped me up all the time as a kid. Where to go next? Emerald made it a little more explicit, but it was so much harder than it should have been to know how to get to Dewford growing up. I thankfully find Mr. Briny pretty quickly though, and then sail there. I get a call from my dad on the way though that's so powerful it stops the boat. That's kind of impressive. I register him as Dad Norman, which feels like the most boomer way to list your parent as a contact. I wind up running out of trainers to battle pretty fast here, and after a surprisingly tedious amount of grinding, I get my team up to the cap. Along the way, Hot Dog evolves into a Mightyena for the first evolution of the run. And like with Roxanne, I've got a Pokemon who can solo Brawly and Jerk Chicken. Her flying type is perfect for an all-fighting team without rock moves. I wing attack Machop, and I forgot about her timid nature. Scratch everything I said. Machop hits a Seismic Toss, but one more wing attack KOs. Meditite is also a 2-hit KO with Wing Attack, but thankfully just uses Bulk Up. It's just Makuhita left. And Wing Attack doesn't even do half! He uses Bulk Up, and I decide to try again. My goal is to get him to the red before his Citrus Berry activates, so Reversal will be nerfed. But he stays in the yellow, and his berry doesn't activate? And Reversal sends Jerk Chicken to the red! I guess in Gen 3, berries activate at the end of the turn, but that's insane. Well, now I'm in a terrible position. And the only real move I can make is to switch into... And I accidentally clicked Wing Attack! That was the worst possible time to misstep, and with one final Vital Throw, Makuhita gets me my first death. I'm so sad now. Rest well, Jerk. I'm sorry. Well, I've got to pick myself up, and the first step is switching into Hot Dog for an Intimidate before I go into Shish Kebab. He comes in on another Vital Throw, which does a third, and activates Effect Spore. That's kinda a problem actually, because he's poisoned now, so he can still attack each turn. I need to get Leech Seed up fast, but it misses. And another Vital Throw gets Shish Kebab to the low yellow. Leech Seed won't work here, so now it's time to Mega Drain, which Makuhita survives on a Sliver! But he recovers just enough health to withstand the subsequent Vital Throw. Makuhita finally falls to poison next turn, but that battle was wild! I'm glad we won, but I just lost my best special attacker to the dumbest mistake. After all that, I decide to blow off my frustration in the Seashore House. It's one of my favorite places in Pokemon. I used to exclusively buy healing items from there because they were so cheap in bulk. And while I'm there, Tamale evolves. In part because of the Jerk Chicken shaped hole on my team, I also get a Shedinja. I decided that he was going to be usable here because I basically just never get to use one. I probably won't use him much in this run either, but I think Shedinja's just fascinating. I named them Cornhusk. Security's really lax at this museum, huh? At least Hot Dog handles Team Aqua, and then I'm rewarded with a glance at my dream boy, Hot Scott. And on Route 110, I've got 2 Pokemon I can catch, Minun or Electrike. Either's good for now, but these are my only electric types of the run. Minun only appears here while Electrike appears on Route 118, but there's a Pokemon I want to get there anyways, so this is a little inconvenient, but I need another Pokemon. So let's see what we get. An Electrike, okay! This means I can't get Minun, but I'm still pretty happy here. I name Electrike Brat, and he has a plus defense minus speed relaxed nature. That's pretty bad, but I need every Pokemon I can get for Flannery. I stopped by the Trick House for some training, and god, I love this place, especially in Emerald. Then, I've got to take on the second major rival fight. Like just about everyone, I struggled with this fight a ton when I was a kid. But it was looking pretty easy, at least when I had a water type. Now, I've got to figure out what my plan is. I decide to lead with Tamale and hit Fury Cutter as Lumberry uses Swift. I could get some Leech Life recovery, but I decide to use Fury Cutter again, as Swift brings Tamale just above half. One more Fury Cutter KOs, and then Slugma's in. I decide ultimately here my best bet is Hot Dog, so I send him in. Slugma hits an Ember, but no burn, and then I get rid of Slugma with 2 bites. It's just Marshtomp left, and I debate switching through pivoting, but decide to just switch straight into Shish Kebab as it goes for Bide. Perfect. I take this opportunity to paralyze and set up Leech Seed, before taking him out in 2 Mega Drains for the win. Brendan's weirdly condescending here too, right? Making it a bit annoying, but this guy's such a tool. What's going on here? In Mawile, I run some errands, and then on Route 117, I catch an Illumise, giving me a full team for the first time this run. I name her S'more. I take on every trainer available to me, and my Pokemon are still each 2 levels under the cap. I don't want to grind anymore, so I decide to just leave them in the daycare and train up Shish Kebab, who evolves into a Breloom. But I accidentally overlevel Cornhusk, which is even worse because they learned Spite at level 25, which the daycare lady replaces Fury Cutter with. So this is definitely the last time you're seeing them. After all my hand-wringing, they really didn't have an impact, huh? And now that everyone else is at the cap of level 24, it's time for Watson. He is definitely a contender for the hardest gym leader ever. Now, having a Breloom makes this fight a little better, but it's not guaranteed. Since Voltorb doesn't have static, I just Mach Punch them 3 times to KO, burning one of Watson's super potions in the process. Electric has static though, so I use 2 Miracle Seed boosted Mega Drains as well as Leech Seed to KO, staying at high health the whole time. On Magneton, I use Mach Punch, but they survive in the yellow and paralyze. I figured that'd happen, but it's still annoying. Especially because Shish Kebab freezes up next turn. We thankfully can get a Mach Punch KO after that though, and Shish Kebab levels up to 25. With Manectric, I decide to take it slow and set up Leech Seed. After a couple turns of freezing up, I decide to use Stun Spore too. But with that, I just need to land Mach Punches to KO. This takes a while actually, partially from burning through his Citrus Berry and Watson's remaining Super Potion, and partially because Shish Kebab must have frozen up like 3 times. But he never gets lower than yellow health, so Manectric ultimately goes down to give us a hard-earned 3rd badge. And now that I can use Rock Smash, I've got a couple new encounters at my disposal. First, I backtrack to Granite Cave and catch a Nosepass I named Rock Shrimp, who has a Mep plus defense minus special defense lax nature. Then, I'm guaranteed a Torkoal on Fiery Path, so I catch one and name her Brisket. Brisket's got a neutral quirky nature, but some pretty atrocious special attack IVs, so we'll have to see how she does. But I'm tentatively really excited to use her. She's my only fire type of the run though, so I've got to be careful with her. I bring her onto the team though, replacing S'more, who's been much more useful than I thought she'd be actually, but I just don't think she'll get a lot of chances to shine this run, unless something goes seriously wrong. I make it to Fall Arbor Town, which was always aesthetically super cool, but never really had that much going on. But I can make it to Route 114 from here, and catch a Swablu I named Wings. He's got a decent plus speed minus special defense naive nature, and I'm gonna temporarily add him to the party over Tamale, who's just not gonna give me anything for Flannery. And now we've got our first meeting with the superior team in Meteor Falls. More land and Hoenn's definitely something I could get behind, but because I can't join either group, I've got to step in the middle of one of the stranger gang wars out there and fight Maxie. He's actually pretty tough for me. If only I had a certain Seagull here. But Shish Kebab takes out his Mightyena in 2 Mach Punches before his camera comes in. I've got a pretty big weakness to ground, but Shish Kebab's weak to fire, and Wings definitely isn't strong enough to fight here yet. So what I decide to do is a Stun Spore Leech Seed combo that thankfully goes off without a hitch, as Camerupt just decides to use 2 weak magnitudes. I switch Hot Dog in after that, and with a few bites, Camerupt goes down to Leech Seed damage, and then Zubat falls right after. This fight wasn't actually that bad, but you can really see my team's imbalance here. What would have happened, for example, if I didn't have Shish Kebab? I get to Lava Ridge, and I thought there was a Kecleon here, but after I ran around for about 10 minutes looking for an invisible wall, I looked it up, and apparently that's just in the remakes? That'll complicate things for me later, but for now, it's on to the gym. And while training, Brot evolves into a Manectric. But I exhaust the available trainers here pretty fast, so I just go right back to the daycare. And while I'm there, I totally forgot that my Pokemon could breed. So I'm just not gonna let whatever weird Mightyena Torkoal offspring that was made out of that egg ever, and just take Flannery on. Now, I'm really missing Jerk Chicken here again, but I've crafted something of a plan that I think might work. I lead with Hot Dog, who intimidates Numel and then flinches with the Black Glass's boosted Bite. That didn't need to happen, but it makes Numel totally free. I get distracted for a second and attack Slugma, who thankfully doesn't have Flame Body, and she flinches too! So now she's down. With Camerupt in now, I can just switch to Brisket as she sets up Sunny Day. While I'm here, Camerupt can't do much damage to Brisket, so I go for 2 Body Slams to fish for a paralysis, with no luck. Then as Flannery heals, I set up 6 curses to max out Brisket's attack and defense. I then technically one-hit Camerupt before Flannery's Torkoal comes in. I hit Protect to waste a turn of Sun and it fades. So now, as Torkoal sets Sunny Day back up, I Body Slam her to bring her to the yellow. I Protect just in case she uses Overheat, but she goes for Body Slam, and with that, it's safe to attack. Except her next Body Slam paralyzes, but Brisket breaks through for a final Body Slam to get us the 4th badge. We get the Go Goggles from Brendan, and seriously, what is this dude's problem? I'm only rappelling through the desert right now because I really want a Cacnea here. I've only got access to Shish Kebab for other grass types this run, but Cacneas are pretty rare in Emerald, so I want to catch a Baltoy first to guarantee one here. It's gonna take a while, but I'll be back. I also take the opportunity to swap Wings back out for Tamale. He'll be back on the team soon enough, especially after, Hot Dog dies. I was fighting a Zangoose in the Petalburg gym who maxed out her attack as Rock Shrimp missed a Rock Slide. Rock Shrimp definitely wasn't living through a second slash, so I had to gamble and try and reduce her attack by switching into Hot Dog, who goes down to it instead. That's annoying. I wanted to use him for Dad, but hopefully I can navigate it. But rest in peace to my starter. What a rough way to go. I trained my team up to the cap though, and I've got a plan for Big Daddy. It seems pretty risky at first, but I actually think it could work. And it does! But I didn't realize I didn't record it, so I had to reset. I don't know what the ethical guidelines are here for attempts, but I think the play is that if I saved after finishing a milestone that wasn't recorded, I just fully wipe and treat it as a new attempt. But if I haven't saved yet, I'll just reset and re-record to better preserve the spirit of that journey. But let me know in the comments what you think makes sense. I didn't count it as a new attempt here, but if y'all disagree, let me know and I'll change it going forward. But anyways, here's my plan. I lead with Tamale on Spinda, who nails him with Facade as he goes for Sword Stance. Next turn, Spinda uses Teeter Dance, which is instantly blocked by Tamale's Prison Berry. One more turn of Sword Stance left, and Spinda uses Facade. Phew! But now I can KO Vigoroth and Linoon with a slash each, and then comes Slacking, and here's why I wanted to do this plan. Ninjask can learn Dig, which is especially awesome as a flying type, but now Dig can hit hard on loafing turns, and allows Tamale to avoid damage on attacking turns, meaning that in 2 hits, I get Slacking to the red before Citrus Recovery, then KO with a final Dig for the win. This would have been risky if Spinda had gone for 2 Facades first, or 2 Teeter Dances. In the battle I didn't record, Spinda confused twice in a row, but I'd gone for Slash on the second turn, which didn't KO. So after Tamale hit himself on the turn after that, I set up another Sword Stance and broke out of confusion to KO. Then crit Vigoroth and Linoon with Slash. Then 3-hit crit Slacking with Dig. So not too different, but Spinda's definitely the most variable part of this fight. I'll always remember the Team 4-star Emerald Nuzlocke in this gym for its Teeter Dance. And now, after going back to Route 101 to catch a Zigzagoon so I can finally get to the other side of Route 118, because the corpse of my dead bird can't learn Surf, I get the Good Rod and fish up a Carvana I named Salmon. He's got a pretty bad plus defense minus attack bold nature, but at least I've got a Surfer now. And then I get the one I really want. In Meteor Falls, I catch a Barboach I named Catfish. He's got a plus attack minus special defense naughty nature, and I'm so excited to use him. I also get a Wailmer on Route 115 who I named Fish Stick. I'm a big fan of the weird, forgotten, or mocked water types in Pokemon, and outside of Dugong, the Wailmer line is the peak example of that. Back when I collected the cards, I wound up losing almost all of them when I was 9 after my friend accidentally knocked a box of them out of a car door. And while we searched as much as we could, I only recovered a small fraction. But Wailmer was the first one I found. And for that reason, they've always been dear to my heart. And while I'm fighting Gabby and Ty, the dynamic duo themselves, Catfish evolves. But my joys quickly cut short after this, because now I've got to do the most grueling part of this challenge. On Route 119, I have to locate one of 6 tiles Phoebus is on. This takes 2 days, but I ultimately find and catch one I named Grill Deal. I've never used a Phoebus before, really, so I'm excited to see how this one turns out. Though I can't evolve him until I reach Lily Cove, so I'm holding off on adding him for now. So I guess that means it's time for the Weather Institute. Team Aqua's here for cast form, but they could really do better if they want to control the weather. Wings and Shish Kebab are ultimately able to make short work of them and Brendan to finally put him in his place. It feels so good getting to a place where I can just coast. Until this random coughing self-destructs and wipes Wings out from a crit. Ugh. I was really hoping I could use him for Winona. So who's gonna be my replacement? The answer to this one isn't actually that tough. It's Rock Shrimp. But before I take on Winona, I've got to get my Route 120 encounter. There's a little bit of a risk here because he's rare, and I could also encounter a Kecleon blocking him out, but I'm thankfully able to find and catch an Absol I named Chardog. I try and run away from the forced Kecleon encounter before ultimately switching into Brock to do it, and Steven says my battle style is intriguing. Huh. I guess I've got to work my way over to Winona now. Even though I have a bunch of Pokemon strong against her, she has pretty good coverage, so we'll see how it goes. I lead with Catfish. Ice Beam doesn't even KO the Swablu. Not good. She uses Mirror Move too, but thankfully no freeze. Winona then heals, and then 2 more KO. More than I wanted to use, but it's fine. At least it one-shots the Tropius. Pelipper's in now, and I distract myself from what could have been by switching to Brat, who sparks her away. But now Altaria's in, and I need to switch. I plan to switch back to Catfish before the battle because she loves to set up. But I got a little paranoid about Earthquake here, so I switch into Tamale as Altaria Dragon Dances. Oh no. I go into Catfish and she finally uses Aerial Ace, but Catfish still has over half health. And now, after a second Dragon Dance, he can finally hit Ice Beam, which doesn't KO again. But it freezes. Winona Hyper Potions and I try again, but no dice. And Altaria thaws out again, but just goes for Dragon Dance. Phew. Okay, well now that Winona threw, Ice Beam KOs and it's just Skarmory left. I switch to Brisket on a Sand Attack, and she crits Skarmory with a Flamethrower for the win. A bit of a weird dance we did, but it all worked out okay, thankfully. Then, a route later, I catch a Shuppet I named Corncob. I'm really excited for him, but outside of defense, he's got genuinely abhorrent IVs. Making matters worse is that I didn't realize there was a limit to how many Pokeblocks I could give Grilldeal, so I thought I maxed out his beauty, but apparently I didn't, and now he's stuck as a Phoebus for good. I'm pretty bummed now, but at least I've got a couple more Pokemon to catch. And to start off, I catch a Duskull I named Ribeye in Mount Pyre. This officially prevents me from getting a Chimecho, but I think Dusclops is always the right move here. It's kind of funny though that in both my runs where Chimecho was viable, I couldn't get one. Then, after Team Aqua and Magma both steal the wrong orbs, that's really it. Everything goes haywire because they couldn't just match their orbs to the color of the Pokemon they wanted to catch. Did they even think this through? Anyways, I go onto Route 123, where I finally find a Kecleon. I catch her and name her Casserole, and it's great timing as a Rock Throw from a random Lunatone KOs Tamale. I didn't see it coming, and I'm so annoyed because I wanted to use him for the league badly. But oh well, after a little bit of digging, Ribeye's on the team. And just in time for Brendan. Though only one Pokemon needs to see any action here, and Brisket solos his entire team. And now possibly the place I got lost most as a kid, the path to the Magma hideout. They really don't make it clear. And I had to bring an HM Pokemon with me, so I'm a little worried about Maxie by the time I get to him, especially now that my Pokemon are all underleveled. I lead with Ribeye. His Mightyena doesn't know any dark moves, so I just use Ribeye to hit him with a quick Confuse Ray after he's hit by Swagger and then switch to Brock. Brock comes in on a Scary Face, so after a takedown that does around a third, I Paralyze and then Spark does over half. We get another Scary Face, but then Maxie heals and 2 more Sparks get rid of Pokemon 1. Camerupt is in now, and anticipating an Earthquake, I swap back into Ribeye, and I'm right. I confuse as he sets up Amnesia before going to Catfish. Camerupt sets up Amnesia again before I go for Surf, which now does a little over half. But then Camerupt hits Earthquake. I should have healed Catfish, but he survives on 2 HP! Maxie heals next, and then 2 Surfs KO for a massive sigh of relief. It's just Crobat now, so I switch to Brat as Wing Attack takes him below half. Bite activates Static, but flinches Brat. He's at low HP, but I've gotta try. Spark sends Crobat low, but he survives and hits another Bite. But Brat pulls through, and then another Spark KOs. The moral of the story here is that I should just never go into these battles without healing. Right after, I give Ribeye a rare candy for all his hard work, letting him evolve into a Dusclops. I blow through Team Aqua after they steal a sub. You'd really think a water team would have a sub of their own, but I guess these guys are pretty budget. And then I head on over to Moss Deep. Here, I pick up the Super Rod and then take on the gym. Tid and Liza have always been a bit of a cakewalk, except in Emerald, where they're terrifying. Xatu and Claydol combine to create some real matchup nightmares for my team, which still has 3 ground weaknesses. Only one way to see what happens, though. I lead with Catfish and Ribeye. Unfortunately, both Xatu and Claydol outspeed, and we get hit with Earthquake as Xatu sets up. Ice Beam does a little under half on Xatu, and then I make the play to burn Claydol, which works! I think they're probably gonna Psychic a Pokemon, so I gamble and swap Rock Shrimp in for Ribeye. But Xatu actually goes for Sunny Day, neutralizing Surface. Catfish gets taken to the yellow with Psychic, but goes back over half thanks to his Citrus Berry. That gives me a bit of confidence then. Now I can do an Ice Beam Rock Slide combo to guarantee that— No! I didn't think enough about how much damage that'd do from Xatu, but that's bad. I've gotta go to Brat here and just hope for some luck. And Rock Shrimp instantly gets hit with a Psychic. Okay, well now I can get rid of Claydol at least, as Tid and Liza heal Xatu. Though they Psychic Brat too. Solrock's in now, but I think it's a good time to get rid of Xatu. Spark paralyzes as he lands a Psychic on Rock Shrimp, but that paralyzes Brat in return. But it doesn't even matter because he straight up KOs Brat with Psychic! This is looking real bad. I've got no choice now but to send in Brisket. We focus on whittling Xatu down, but in the process, Rock Shrimp gets taken out with a Solar Beam. This battle is a pure bloodbath. But Ribeye comes in to save the day. Now, after Tid and Liza heal again, we can take Xatu down after a couple turns. Then, with Flamethrower and Shadow Punch, We're able to take Solrock and then Lunatone out a few turns later for the win. The Lunatone lands an absolutely terrifying Psychic at the end. Brisket nearly became my 4th casualty in this fight alone. I'm so bummed now. I just did all this grinding for Tate and Liza, and now I've got to get an entirely new team. This was so bad. I ultimately decide on Fishstick the Wailmer, Casserole the Kecleon, and some more the Illumise. You can see I'm pretty close to the bottom of the barrel now. Well, I train them all up, and then take on Team Magma at the Space Center. This was always my favorite addition to Emerald. I love the double battle with Steven, and here, switching between Brisket and Fishstick lets me get rid of confusion and stay healthy to win surprisingly easily. Then, I head to Seafloor Cavern, and along the way, I fish up a Luvdisc on Route 128 that I named Peach Cobbler. I take on Archie, but my team's pretty optimized for him. I just have to dodge some swaggers and I'm home free. Groudon and Kyogre are beefing now, and I really feel like Kyogre's so clearly gonna win here. Just look at Groudon's little chunk of land. This ain't a fair fight. So now I've got to talk to the Sky Dragon to save them. And the best part of it is that I can go to Sky Pillar, where I can now find a Claydol, who No! How is that the second time that's happened this run? I spent some time looking at my PC, but there aren't a lot of great options. Because of sheer type redundancy, the only Pokemon I'd consider taking out is Absol. But I've been trying to avoid using Pokemon I've already used as much as possible this run. Casserole's a bit of an exception here because I barely used Kecleon when I played Ruby. So anyways, I make a call. I'm basically throwing a Hail Mary, but I head back to Route 111 and wander the desert hoping that even with the odds stacked against me by nearly 4-1, I can find a Cacnea. And I do! I catch her and name her Watermelon. She's got a neutral bashful nature, and even with some of the worst IVs possible and everything but defense and speed, I don't think I could do this run without her. And with Watermelon in hand, or Ball I guess, I get Rayquaza to wake up and save the day. Apparently Groudon and Kyogre flew off, which seems pretty concerning, but I guess it's chill. Time for Juan! Juan has just about the stupidest sprite in the entire series. Just look at him. What a goober. And this fight was really fun. I lead with S'more, who outspeeds and KOs Luvdisc with Thunderbolt. I get over my trauma of seeing an old friend to realize I don't have a move to hit him with. No worries, I just set up Wish as he uses Amnesia. I then Encore Trap him into it, so Wish doesn't really do anything, but now I just switch into Watermelon. Needlearm doesn't quite do half now that Whiscash's special defense is maxed out, so I just use a couple growths to make sure I get what I need. Encore ends, and now a Needlearm takes out Whiscash and Celio, but Kingdra's in now. And as much as I love that Seahorse, Ice Beam is just a massive threat. Anticipating it, I switch into Brisket, but I forgot the golden rule of Gen 3 AI. They always set up on the first turn. After a double team, I think Brisket can probably take a Water Pulse, so I risk a Body Slam, which lands but doesn't paralyze after Brisket gets hit under half. I protect to bait out another, and now I can switch. I go into Fishstick, who takes one relatively well before Kingdra goes for another double team. And here's where the fight derails a little. Fishstick is so bulky that I can just basically spam Ice Beam and rest when needed to get Kingdra to waste his Ice Beams. Juan heals and Kingdra wastes his Chesto Berry in the process. At a certain point, Kingdra runs out of Ice Beams and switches to Water Pulse, so I get rid of those too. Once Fishstick runs out of Ice Beams, I switch to Dive. I'm just waiting for Kingdra to rest at this point, and he finally does after a while of waiting. It's just as Fishstick rests too, but I don't need her for the rest of this fight anyways, so it's fine. I swap back into Watermelon, and after a couple of turns, I hit Leech Seed. Kingdra wakes up that turn and uses Double Team, making me realize he's all out of Water Pulse PP, so now this fight really is free. I set up 4 growths, and then Feint Attack KOs Kingdra, and Needlearm gets rid of Crawdaunt for the win. After a quick trip to the move deleter so I can teach Fishstick Waterfall, we're on to Evergrande City. This is not a real city, and I don't understand why they're trying to convince us otherwise. At least I get to see Scott. Wally's my last major battle before the league, and he immediately insults me by leading with Altaria. After an Aerial Ace, Ice Beam leaves him on a sliver, so Wally heals, but Ice Beam takes him right back. I decide to switch to Surf to save PP, but Wally goes to Magneton, making this play really helpful actually. And now, Fishstick outspeeds and one more Surf KOs. Roselia's out now, and Ice Beam doesn't quite KO, so he gets to use Leech Seed, but it misses! That is so clutch! One more Ice Beam does the job, and then Surf gets rid of Altaria. Delcatty's up now, and she immediately lands Sing. Assist and Feint Attack combine to bring Fishstick to the low yellow, so I decide it's probably time to switch. But to whom? Since I'm planning on this being Casserol's last battle, I decide to give it to her. She comes in as Delcatty uses Feint Attack, making her a Dark type. That's actually perfect. Now I can get rid of Delcatty, and now all Gardevoir can do is just keep setting up, because he can't hit Casserole at all, so I get to leisurely spam Feint Attacks, not even worrying about the evasion from Double Team before getting rid of Wally for good. What a way to go out. Why does Wally just stay here though? Get a job! And now I can catch my final encounter. After running around in the Victory Road basement for a half hour, I found a Mawile. But something's up. I catch him and name him Poundcake. But just as I feared, he doesn't have Intimidate. That was the one big reason I wanted him, so I'm pretty upset. Hypercutter isn't bad, but it's definitely not as good. I debate swapping back for Casserole to make my life easier, but I decide to just go with him. After a day of grinding where I wind up encountering and KOing a shiny Hariyama, I get my team to the cap of level 55, the same level as Drake Salamence. My team is pretty slow and it can't hit super hard, so let's just hope this all works out. Gen 3's Elite Four is in the bottom half of memorability for me, but that doesn't mean they're not a challenge. The Sydney definitely isn't. I lead with Poundcake, who immediately uses Substitute. His ability cancels out Mightyena's Intimidate, and Mightyena keeps going for Sand Attack for some reason. Brick Break isn't KOing, but Sydney heals, and I'm getting Shell Bell recovery anyways. A couple more get the job done and level Poundcake up. Now, Crawdon's in, but Brick Break crits to KO. He had the only neutral attack on Poundcake, so this was perfect. Now it's Shiftry, and Brick Break leaves him in the yellow as he uses Double Team. One more lands, but only after he uses Torment. That's not a huge problem, as I can just Baton Pass into Brisket on Cacturne as he uses Leech Seed, but it doesn't connect thanks to the sub. Same with his Cotton Spore, and then Flamethrower KOs him, and then two more do the same to Absol, as he just keeps setting up Swords Dances, leveling Brisket up. Phoebe and Glacia are usually the toughest members for me, but I'm not too worried about Phoebe this time. Here, I start with the same strategy of Substitute, which works out great as Dusclops uses Protect. I'm a little worried because she goes for Shadow Punch next, but the sub holds. Crunch looks like it's done a little over half, so with one more, I KO! The second Dusclops is in, so this time I Baton Pass into Watermelon, who takes a weak Earthquake with her new sub still intact. Feint Attack does half as Ice Beam breaks Watermelon sub, but with Citrus Recovery, I've gotta just hope for a flinch. I use a Miracle Seed boosted Needle Arm, but no flinch. But Ice Beam doesn't even do half, so I can get rid of her with a final Feint Attack, leveling Poundcake up. Banette's in, and I think she's the one with Will-O-Wisp. I go for Feint Attack and she survives, and I'm right as she burns. Thankfully, another Feint Attack KOs, but Watermelon's probably not going to do great for the rest of this fight, despite leveling up. I swap into Fish Stick as Sableye goes for Double Team. She uses Shadow Ball next, but no drop, and we hit a Mystic Water boosted Surf to bring her to the yellow. The next one misses as she uses Nightshade, but one more gets the KO. I swap to Brisket on the final Banette as Thunderbolt paralyzes. But barring ridiculously bad luck, I think we've got this. Flamethrower doesn't quite KO, so a couple more waste Phoebe's full restores before we finish up. Glacia is pretty scary to me. I went with the same strategy I'd been using, but I'm not convinced it was the right play. I set up Substitute as Celio uses Hail. A couple Brick Breaks ultimately do the job after a Body Slam, but now Walreign's in. After a Surf breaks my Substitute, Brick Break only does a third. That's a little troubling. I decide to go for a second to waste Walreign's Citrus Berry, and just hope I tank a Surf okay. And Poundcake survives in the red, getting some extra recovery from Shell Bell. Hail stops, but now I've got to switch. I go into Samore, who takes a Surf with over half health, and then a Magnet boosted Thunderbolt gets rid of Walreign. The first Glalie is in, and I decide to go for a Giga Drain to see if it's worth Encore trapping her. She uses Icy Wind, so this was probably a waste. I swap into Brisket, who KOs with Flamethrower after some damage. Celio's out next, and I try to outlast her, but with Hail and Thick Fat making Flamethrower much weaker, damage piles up pretty fast. So I go into Fish Stick on a Mist Blizzard, which is weird given the Hail. But now, Return gets the job done there. It's just the final Glalie left, who I think won't explode now. After Glacia heals, a couple Surfs get the win. Though my team's a little battered after all that. Now, Drake is pretty hit or miss, but my big problem here is how hard we hit. I decide to give my squad a few rare candies just to boost their damage range chances. I set up Substitute on the Shelgon again, and then try to get a bit of damage in with Crunch, which I do as Rock Tomb misses. Now it's time to Baton Pass out, so I go into Fish Stick, who gets hit but her sub stays put. Now she just KOs with Ice Beam before Altaria comes in. Dragon Breath does manage to break my sub, and then Ice Beam leaves Altaria on a sliver. So much for that rare candy. Drake heals as I go for some chip damage with Return. Double Edge connects, but it's nothing too bad, and then I KO with Ice Beam. Kingdra's in now, so I go into Watermelon, who instantly gets paralyzed from Body Slam. That's so annoying, but at least she lands Leech Seed after a Dragon Dance. After the first Body Slam though, Kingdra just doesn't attack, so a few Needle Arms plus Leech Seed damage leave her at full health as Flygon comes in. But I'm worried about Flamethrower, so I bring Fish Stick back out. It doesn't burn thankfully, and after Earthquake doesn't even bring Fish Stick under half, I'm feeling pretty good as Ice Beam brings Salamence in. I gave Fish Stick a Chesterberry this fight, so I decide to just rest after whatever Salamence uses. Unless it crits. You really and truly hate to see it. I need to bring someone in now, and that might as well be Ribeye. He takes a Crunch for less than half health, and Ice Beam leaves Salamence in the red, but freezes! He looks like he's not in healing range, so let's finish this. But Salamence defrosts and uses Crunch, but Ribeye takes it out to get the win. That was a tragic loss though. I don't think there was a great way around Drake Salamence without a sacrifice, but now I've lost one of my absolute favorite Pokemon heading into the champion. Wallace is definitely not someone to be messed with, and even though I prefer Steven as champion, this battle isn't looking easy as is. I use my remaining rare candies and head in. So basically, I've got to start with S'more here. And it's like Wallace wanted to traumatize me by leading with a Wailord. I use a Magnet boosted Thunderbolt, which does over half. And then Wailord uses Rain Dance. So I get an idea that I thought was clever at the time. I Encore Rain Dance and see if I can wait out the rain while getting him to waste his PP. After Giga Drain leaves him on a sliver, Wallace heals, but much to my chagrin, Thunderbolt crits to KO. Guess the rain's just gonna keep kicking then. Tentacruel is in, and I hit Thunderbolt, which doesn't even do half, as Tentacruel uses Hydro Pump to bring S'more to the yellow. Probably should have known better here. Let's see what Ribeye can do. He comes in to lose a quarter to Hydro Pump, and after a Toxic, he hits Tentacruel to the red with Shadow Ball. After a final Hydro Pump, one more Shadow Ball gets the KO here. But Toxic's really racking up damage as Ribeye goes to the red. I need to switch, so I go into Watermelon on Ludicolo as he uses Surf to do a quarter. Ludicolo starts setting up double teams as I try to do some damage with Needle Arm. I get a couple flinches in, but he survives on a sliver, so Wallace heals. Oh well. I've got to repeat the process, and this time, Ludicolo starts attacking. So by the time a Feint Attack KOs, Watermelon's in the red, and I definitely can't keep her going on Milotic. So here's where I make another rough play. I switch Brisket in, expecting an Ice Beam, which Milotic uses, and then I Protect to waste a Surf. I actually get the double Protect, but there's not much more I can do, so I've gotta let Brisket go. I click Body Slam, and with a final Surf, she drowns. She was my longest active party member, so I'm sad to see her go. But then, I decide to go into Pound Cake for no reason. Surf doesn't KO, and I get a Sludge Bomb off, but he's about to get dropped, right? Well, Wallace actually sends in Whiscash to hunt for the type mismatch, and I'm kinda stuck, so I've gotta stay in. But for some unknown reason, I just go for Sludge Bomb, squandering a chance to get some real damage here. And with an Earthquake, I've just lost my last addition to my party. Now, I bring in S'more, who can't even KO a pre-damaged Whiscash with a doubly strong Giga Drain. At least she's above half now, or at least before Surf, but Wallace heals again, giving me the perfect opportunity to siphon some more recovery. One more Giga Drain gets the KO, and tops S'more off. Gyarados comes in, so I just go for Thunderbolt, which actually one-shots. I'm so happy. I Thunderbolt Milotic as he uses Recover, which gives me an idea. I Encore him into Recover and then set up Wish, switching back into Watermelon. She immediately gets up to 3/4 health, and then I execute my plan. I set up Leech Seed, but I wanted to try a Turn of Growth that I'm just not going to get before Encore ends. So one chance to see what we can do, but Ice Beam connects. And we survive on 3 HP! And no freeze means I can use Needle Arm, which leaves Milotic in the yellow before his berry. Though he falls right back after Leech Seed. But it's time to let Watermelon go. With a final Ice Beam, she shatters. I've only got 2 Pokemon left, so I better make them count. I go back to S'more as Milotic goes down to around a 1/3 health. Thunderbolt should do it. But he survives on a sliver! That's so infuriating. What luck. I try again and the process repeats. So it's time to take a new tactic. And by that, I mean an old one. I Encore Recover again and then switch to Ribeye. I don't even want to risk an early end to Encore here by using Wish. But now I can just rest, and with the Chesterberry on Ribeye, he immediately wakes up at full health. There's not much I can do until Milotic runs out of Recover PP though, so I decide to just hunt for special defense drops and use Psychic. I slowly wear him down and get him below half health before he finally uses an attack on me. But when Milotic falls to the red, Wallace heals again, so I try to play the optimist and think of it as more time to drop hunt. It's nice that Ribeye is so bulky that I don't need to worry too much about getting hit hard by attacks at least. Milotic ultimately goes back to the red, and I'm expecting another heal, but it doesn't come as Surf takes Ribeye to the yellow, and Psychic finally gets the drop. But it doesn't even matter, as Watermelon's last gift to the team pays off to take out Milotic and make us the Hoenn champion. Even though this was one of the bloodiest Elite Four runs I've ever had on this channel, I felt so amped after that win. I took a deeply misfit team and led them to win it all. Brendan's crushed that we somehow managed to do it without his advice. Take that, dork. I love this run. Outside of the normal water slog towards the end of the Hoenn games, and a surprising amount of grinding, this Nuzlocke was an absolute blast. One of the reasons I wanted to do this series was to use a wide variety of Pokemon who I didn't normally see used in Hardcore Nuzlocke videos, and I really got to do that here. It also helped that a rapid string of deaths left me in a position where I had to rely on a slow and weak team to get me through the late game. I probably should have invested more into developing more of a stall team, but I'm glad it worked out. They're not super uncommon exactly, but this was my first time using a Torkoal in a run, and I had a blast. Illumise was also surprisingly good, and this made me appreciate her way more. But more than anything, Cacturne was a godsend. That encounter was the single biggest stroke of luck in the game, and I definitely wouldn't have become champion without her. After playing Emerald again, I'm really reminded of why I loved it so much. Even though it gets a little amorphous in the end, it just feels amazing to play through. What's your favorite team you've ever used to beat Emerald? Let me know in the comments, because this just might be mine. And that's a wrap. Please feel free to give a like or subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see me do, please feel free to leave a comment, at me on Twitter, or email me with your suggestion at ed40plays@gmail.com. Catch you all next time!